Hello again, and welcome to our second episode in our Wellness Wednesday series. In this week's episode, we will be talking about women's health. So, what about women's health that we need to find out about? So, there's four main categories that I'm going to be talking about, four main topics I'll be talking about. It's hormone replacement, oral contraceptives, cancer, the big thing now, and fibromyalgia. You'll hear a lot about all these things nowadays, right? So let me start off with, let's just say, the hormone replacement therapies. Now, when we talk about menopausal women, right? When we're talking about women that are, say, into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they're going through what's called menopause. This is where you experience things like hot flashes, night sweats. So what were doctors doing before? So doctors were prescribing something called Premarin. You may have heard of Premarin. Premarin was derived from a pregnant mare's urine, so pregnant horse's urine. It was structurally similar to what your body produces in estrogen level wise. So this is what people were getting. Then they realized that, hey, when you're giving people a Premarin, it was not exactly going well with people because there was increased risk of cardiovascular disease, there was increased risk of breast cancer, cervical cancers. So what do? They started taking that away. You don't hear too much about Premarin anymore, do you? Because yes, they have taken that off the market now. The other thing is postmenopausal women have become what's called estrogen dominant. Estrogen dominant means, your body has a natural rhythm. There's always a balance between something called estrogen levels and progesterone levels in the body. When you are menopausal, people would think, hey, some of them, some menopausal women have had hysterectomies or have had their ovaries and everything removed. So what you would think is your ovaries are the ones that produce estrogen, so you would have low estrogen. Well, that's not the case. With nowadays, what's going on is there are a lot of different external sources of estrogen that your body is getting. Let me just tell you one more thing. Your fat cells in your body are also an estrogen producing machine. If you have too much fat in your body, like fat cells, you actually are producing a lot of estrogen. Your adrenals, we talked about the adrenals last week. Your adrenals are also, even though they're a stress hormone producer, they actually produce certain sex hormones, and estrogen is one of them also. So we do have a lot of production of estrogen. Now that is from the body. Now I'll tell you external sources. You'll be surprised to hear some of these things, right? The foods we're eating nowadays. We know the foods are bad, or we know what we are eating are sometimes causing a lot of these issues in our body, from hormones and antibiotics and stuff that they're using in the body, in the foods. The big thing is, think about this. If you remember, give it even about 10, 20 years ago, I remember when you ordered a chicken breast in a restaurant, it was like a small size of a chicken breast that you would get. And nowadays when you order chicken breast, what happens? You get something that's this large. How did that suddenly become? What kind of chicken is that? Well, chickens are not just being given antibiotics. Hens or chickens are given estrogen. Estrogen makes their breasts larger, and thus you end up with a big chicken breast like that. Now what happens with that chicken when you eat it? Well, you're getting not just chicken and protein from that, but you're also getting estrogen that's going back into your body. For women, that's bad because that estrogen causes this more of that estrogen dominance deal. For guys and men as well, you're actually getting more estrogen. You've noticed a lot of men actually develop female breasts. Like you notice a lot of people that are overweight or some people that have other issues, men actually have male breasts. So that is an estrogen issue. So estrogen is big from that too. Now, there's another big thing about estrogen. I'll tell you this is going to be very interesting. Did you know that they put estrogen in women's creams, lotions and creams, and in makeup? Interesting, isn't it? So think about this. Anything that you put on your skin, you may have heard this, any stuff that you put on your skin actually gets absorbed from your skin and goes into your bloodstream. So any of those night creams and all these expensive lotions and stuff that you put on your face to kind of, beautify you are actually being absorbed by your skin and going into your bloodstream. A lot of these, not just the expensive brands, but a lot of different makeup brand guys know this. So what they do is they actually have incorporated a little bit of estrogen in their makeups. What happens now is when you put this makeup with the estrogen on it, it's like it goes into your bloodstream and makes you feel more feminine, makes you feel a little more, happy and girly. So that is one of their secrets. They don't have, the FDA does not tell any makeup companies to put any of their, what they're using on the labels. So you may have never realized that. But there are a lot of makeup brands that actually use estrogen in their products, and that estrogen again is going into your body, giving you this whole thing called estrogen dominance. That estrogen dominance causes a whole sorts of issues. Estrogen and progesterone, as I was just saying, there's supposed to be a bit balance between them. think of estrogen as the thing that proliferates things, as in like it grows things, right? And your progesterone as the gardener. All right, we'll talk about a garden series thing. So estrogen is like the fertilizer for certain things, and the progesterone is the gardener. He's the one who's going to control and say, hey, there are certain bad things and certain good things, so we're going to weed off the bad things. Estrogen can also, when you have estrogen dominance, it can cause your breast cancer, your cervical cancer. All those are what's called estrogen-related cancers. So you do not want to be high in estrogen in your body. So that is one of the big things right there too. So progesterone, as I said, is the gardener, or is the guy who's taking care of everything in the body. We want a little bit more of that, especially with postmenopausal women. So there's actually plant-based estrogen topical creams that we actually prescribe in our office too. These are creams, as I said again, it's topical, which means you're applying it on your skin. It'll go through your skin into your bloodstream and help regulate or keep that balance between your estrogen and progesterone. That's one big thing there too. All right, now let's go to the second topic, which is oral contraceptives. Since the 1960s and 70s, oral contraceptives have become huge. They say close to 50% of young women are on some form of birth control or an oral contraceptive. All these oral contraceptives, once again, are estrogen based. So they're actually regulating a cycle in different ways, and that's what prevents you from getting pregnant. Now, think about it. I just explained about what happens when you go into that whole estrogen dominant state. So a lot of women, even in their younger ages, when they suddenly start deciding, hey, I want to get pregnant, so they get off some of these estrogen-based contraceptive pills, have a really tough time getting pregnant. So it causes a lot of infertility issues. What's happening is, think about it, you're getting a synthetic hormone being put into your body for 10, 12, 15 years that some women are on contraceptives for, and then suddenly you take that contraceptive away because you're like, hey, now I want to get pregnant now. Your body was so used to getting an external source of estrogen that it is, or not just estrogen, estrogen and progesterone, that it stops producing some of it because it thinks, hey, it's smart. As I told you, in some of these videos, I always mention that the body is a very smart piece of machinery. It's thinking, we're getting this external source of estrogen. Why are we producing, or why are we burning ourselves out? So the ovaries and all that slowly tune down. They turn down their production of estrogen. So when you suddenly take the synthetic, oral like your contraceptive pills away, you are not getting that estrogen, and your body's not producing as much as it should. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of women have issues when they want to start conceiving. So there's a big thing. There's things we can do for that as well too. Again, coming back to the progesterone-based creams. Oral contraceptives, they've also realized, are increasing the risk for heart attacks, stroke, and cancers. You don't hear too much about that again, but that is very true. Cancer risks, heart attack risks, stroke, those are the three main big killers in America right now. And what's going on is some of the stuff that we are doing to ourselves that's bringing those things onto us. Talking about cancer, let's move on. Big thing, breast cancer. I'm sure you may have heard, anybody and everybody, you talk to a few people and you'll hear two people tell you that I know somebody, or I've had breast cancer myself, right? Breast cancer is becoming very popular in some ways suddenly. We never used to hear about breast cancer a long time back, and now suddenly they say 50%, nearly 50% of the population has breast cancer, or we may get breast cancer. That's a staggering number. We don't want anybody to be suffering through that. Personally, I've had my mom go through breast cancer as well. While I was in school, I didn't know any about these things about Premarin and all that, and she had gone through a full hysterectomy, and she was prescribed Premarin. She was on Premarin for close to, I think, 7 to 8 years, and after just 7 to 8 years, when I understood the whole role of Premarin, we got her off of it, but it was kind of too late. So she did end up with breast cancer, and she's a survivor now, so it's wonderful. But that's one of these things, that's why it's very close to my heart. I want to find out what exactly is going on and help educate people and let you know that breast cancer, it's running rampage now. We don't want that. What's going on? By the way, cancer, this is one big fact I learned as well too. Cancer is not genetic. Because again, in our family, the way I just said, my mom ended up with breast cancer. And why was that? Her mom, her grandma, nobody had ever heard about cancer or breast cancer. Now suddenly she ended up with cancer. How is that going on? Well, we had an external source, Premarin. So cancer is not genetic. There's a lot of external sources, external factors in our lives nowadays that are leading our bodies to cause these cancers. So we got to watch what we're putting in our bodies and on our bodies too now. Big thing that they do for cancers or screening is your mammograms. I'm sure most of you ladies over 40 have been told by a doctor that you have to have a mammogram every year just to kind of make sure you're relieving your risk of cancer. or catching cancer earlier if there is any kind of cancer. But did you know that they are not effective? There is a high rate of what's called false positive. It detects a lot of disease before there's even a disease, or there may not even be a disease, and people are being detected or told that they have breast cancer from mammograms. They are not very effective. It's not just us saying that. The science community, the medical doctors are actually saying that now. They're telling you that mammograms are not as effective as they once thought they were. Cancer, or the breast cancer, is a very slow growing cancer. So even though when they find a pin-sized head on a mammogram, that thing has been growing for 7 to 9 years. Think about it, 7 to 9 years old. So that thing's been growing slowly, you just didn't realize it, and in a mammogram caught it a little while, and then they put you through the whole process of the chemotherapy and the whole cancer industry. We don't want that stuff. What is the best solution for that? There's something called thermography. Thermography is they're checking heat sensors, or heat sensation, heat changes in the breast. This is much more effective. It actually will find a cancer at a very early stage. Some of these insurance companies are actually allowing, or they're covering this, but it is not that expensive. If you're paying out of pocket, I would still recommend doing what's called a thermography. This is much more effective than any of your mammogram stuff too. And of course, the best thing, every woman knows that a self-breast exam is one of the best ways to find out if you do have any kind of breast issues going on too. So those are big things. Cancer is, we gotta take control of that. Otherwise, right now in this, what's going on with the industry right now, as you've noticed, so many cancer drugs, or just drugs in general. I learned another big staggering fact. Did you know that 48% of adverts on TV are being paid by the pharmaceutical companies? So it's kind of sad, because when you watch TV nowadays, almost every other commercial is some kind of a drug commercial. And America is one of the only countries in the world that allows pharmaceutical companies to actually advertise on TV, on general media. It's kind of sad, right? And that's one of the reasons why people rush to a doctor going, hey, I think I need that drug because I have those symptoms they mentioned on TV. That's not what we need to do. We need to actually take care, just take a step back. We can prevent this. Cancer is actually preventable nowadays, right? It's not just something that, boom, showed up. It can be prevented. So there are a lot of different things that we can do for our bodies that will help prevent any of these cancers forming. Now, moving on to a big thing that a lot of women actually suffer from nowadays is something called fibromyalgia. We have a lot of women. I have close to 40% of women, I can say, in my office that come to me going that my doctor said I have fibromyalgia. Did you know what fibromyalgia is? There is no blood test that detects fibromyalgia. There are no x-rays. It does not show up on x-rays or anything like that. You may go up to your medical doctor, and sometimes they just kind of keep listening to your symptoms and say, oh, you have too much pain going on, you have fibromyalgia. It's 18 out of 20 tender points. There's specific points located on the body that if they push and you go ow, 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 they say you have fibromyalgia. I'll show you what's going on with that stuff too. Oh, by the way, and it affects 1 out of 9 women nowadays. 1 out of 9. That's becoming a big number again. Why are we getting these fibromyalgia issues as well too? So, and the other thing is, again, fibromyalgia, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. Think about it. If you're constantly in pain, what's your body doing? It's going to be tired, right? It's constantly sending signals from the brain into your muscles, and your muscles are constantly firing, going ow, ow. And that is causing all these chronic fatigue issues where you're tired, you don't have energy, you're constantly in pain issues. So that's the other name for it. It's called chronic fatigue syndrome. What is the cause of this? Right? Fibromyalgia. That's what, again, we've asked medical doctors. I've looked at many reputable sources and journals. No one knows. How sad is that? They've got a whole diagnosis for something which no one knows what the cause for it is. What is going on nowadays is we are, again, I keep jumping to this whole food thing, but foods are huge. What we are putting in our body is a big fuel source for the body. If you're not putting the right things in there, it's going to cause all sorts of imbalances. All these imbalances are what cause all these other issues going on in the body. The big things for fibromyalgia, if you ever been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, we've seen a lot of patients in our office, and we've helped a lot of patients with this stuff too. There's something called the 4 deadly food groups, right? Your pasteurized dairy, hydrogenated soybean oil, your white stuff, the white sugars and the white flours, those are pretty bad stuff, and the hard fats. So let me tell you about this whole pasteurized dairy thing. America is one of the, again, big countries that we pasteurize, homogenize, do stuff to our milk where it destroys the proteins, it changes the whole structure of it. I grew up in a country where we used to get milk directly from the farm. A farmer would bring milk from his cows right into our house. We would boil it one time and then it would stay. We didn't have to refrigerate that milk. Nowadays, with all this pasteurization and all that, milk stays in a gallon for what? Close to a month. When you look at some of those expiration dates, makes you wonder, how is this thing surviving till, a month from now? Milk would usually go bad if there's good bacteria in there too. Again, those are the bacteria that go in our gut and help us digest things and make our gut feel or do things the right way. We're missing out on all sorts of things that way. And that's one of the reasons why, if you're doing any kind of pasteurized dairy, your ice creams, your yogurts, your just your regular milk stuff, you got to avoid that. If you have fibromyalgia, if you have any of these kind of chronic pain issues, your hydrogenated soybean oil, 60% of the foods in the supermarkets nowadays are made from soybean oil, or they use soybean oil for that too. This thing increases triglycerides in your blood. Triglycerides are the ones that are actually the main culprit when we talk about heart disease. It's not your cholesterol levels, it's not your HDL or LDL, it's triglycerides. Triglycerides are what make your blood thicker. Once your blood gets thicker, it starts causing it starts hardening around your arteries, and that's what causes the whole blockage. So we got to avoid some of that stuff too. White sugar, white flour, we all know that, right? Sugar is a big culprit. That's your processed sugars now. And sugar is hidden in so many foods here in America that when you hear some of those stats, the statistics where they say an American consumes 48 pounds of sugar in a year, 48 pounds, that's staggering amount again. So all that sugar is definitely disrupting a lot of different things in the body, not just causing diabetes issues, right? It causes things this way as well too. From your hard fats that we talked about. Hard fats are fats that are used to deep fry anything that you buy commercially, right? You buy your fries from McDonald's, they're using lard and hard deep fried. So when that fat is just sitting at room temperature, it actually thickens and becomes like a white hard solid, right? It's only when it's heated up and boiled is when it becomes into a liquid. So those hard fats are usually very disruptive for the body. So we don't want that stuff. Now, what can you do to actually help some of these things, just with your fibromyalgia and all that stuff too? The big thing are just taking things like probiotics. Probiotics are wonderful for the gut. The gut, it all comes down to the gut again. I know I keep talking about the gut all the time, but you may have heard of something called leaky gut syndrome. Leaky gut syndrome is where your body is allowing large undigested particles of food to transfer through that whole barrier and float around in your bloodstream. That causes all sorts of issues. So when you actually take probiotics, there are certain things that can kind of help heal the gut too. And that's a big process that we do in our office as well. So we'll talk about leaky gut in one of my other videos here, because it's a whole big topic again on its own. Exercise. Think about this. Just taking a deep breath and out. When you breathe in, you're taking in air. When you breathe out, you're releasing carbon dioxide, right? Carbon dioxide causes carbonic acid in the body. Acid, you may have heard again of new things where they say an acidic environment is a breeding ground for cancers and all sorts of diseases. And that's one of the reasons you might have noticed in the stores they're actually selling alkalized water now, because alkaline is where your body works the best. So simple stuff as exercise or just even breathing. You sit down and take a few deep breaths in and out, you're actually changing your body from that acidic state into an alkaline state, which is very helpful for the body. Water, drinking water. If you're patients in my office, you know I am a big proponent of water. I'm always asking how much water you're drinking, because water, your body's 80% water, right? Your muscles, your brain, all that requires a lot of water. The requirement is, or the recommended deal for water is half your body weight in ounces of water a day. So somebody that weighs 160 pounds needs 80 ounces of water a day. I know it sounds like you're going to drown yourself if you drink that much, but you're not going to drink it from tomorrow. You always start off very gentle, slowly, and allow your body to adjust to that, and you'll notice a big change with water. Water is the miracle liquid. I talk about that all the time too. So water is water. You got to drink water, not just talking about iced teas and juices. It's water. Simple, pure old water. Drink that, watch and see the difference with that too. One more big thing I also talk about is something called the lymphatic system. The lymphatics are, it's almost like your bloodstream. You know, we have all this network of arteries and veins in our body. We also have something called the lymphatic system, which transverses throughout the body, through your muscles, through your organs and all this. This transports what's called like the waste products from the muscles. If you notice, you remember when kids get sick sometimes when you're young, or even when you're sick, you get like swollen lymph nodes. That's because your lymphatic system is working to pump all that bad stuff out, takes it into the lymph nodes, and gets rid of it. The lymphatic system does not have a heart or something else pumping it. It's motion. It's your muscles. When you move certain things, your muscles are pumping those lymphs, kind of like pumping it throughout the body, and that's how it works. So if your lymphatic system is more stagnant, you end up with a lot of diseases and issues from it just not moving as well as it should. So just a little exercise, a little motion, just moving around will allow those lymphatics to kind of flow a little better and help your body function the way it should. I know it's a lot of information again in one of these videos, but if you found this information helpful, please share this video with anybody you know, and like and comment us or comment about this video, or tell me again another one of the topics that you would like for me to discuss, and we'll go from there. So looking forward to the next episode, and I'll see you next week. Bye.